So I'm doing some more work to the compressor. I'm working on the refrigerative dryer. So before we get into that, I'll just show you I've removed the compressor from the receiver. See down there? And the way I did that was just unbolt it, and then a few years ago I made this, which is a telescopic 2-ton gantry for my little machine shop. It's got a little come along there, and you can see the compressor is just hanging from there at the moment. If you want to see anything about this gantry that I made, all the details of it, well, not all the details, but the story of the build is on CNCZone. I'll put a link in the video description. You can have a quick look at that. I don't know if you've got to log in as a member or anything. I think you can log in as a guest, and you'll see the pictures, I'm pretty sure, in the thread. But as you can see, it's got holes. What you do is it'll come along here. You just put the hook down underneath the blue bit, take the weight. The blue bit obviously shuttles inside the yellow bit. Once you take the weight, that pin comes free. You can pull the pin out, adjust the come along up or down to whichever hole, and set your height. You do one at a time. You just got to make sure you put the monkey at whichever end you're not working on, otherwise it wants to run down the beam as you have one leg up and one leg down before you set the height. Then obviously you put the weight back on the pin, so the pin's taken all the weight. There's my finger so you can sort of see the size of scale. Anyway, so there's the compressor. Pardon me, there's the motor and the compressor just hanging up there. And like I said earlier, I've been working on the refrigerative dryer. So I've got the little roof off. I was quite surprised. I cleaned the front up, and I'm very impressed in how good it looks. There's a big reflection shining off it from the light outside at the moment. I'll go around the other side and you'll be able to see. There's a better shot there. So I just cleaned that up with a rag and a little bit of degreaser. It used to look like the tank. It looked like that. And I mean, now look at it. It looks fantastic. Once I got cleaned it up with the degreaser, then I went over it with Mcguire's paint cleaner, which is a car care product. It's good stuff. And I also did the sticker, so you can clearly see, really cleaned it up nice. Then once I'd done all that, I went over it with their deadly polish they call Tech Wax, which I love. It's good stuff on a car. Brought that up really nice. So the little display, the little controller on here, I've got in the cupboard. I'll get that out and show you. Here's the controller. I clean that up. Same thing with some that Mcguire's product, the paint cleaner, and then their Tech Wax. And look how nice that come up. So this was all oxidized and chalky, but I mean you can see it quite clearly now. I was quite surprised, made by Danfoss. Danfoss makes some good stuff, so I'll be able to look that up and hopefully get a manual for it. There you go. There's the wiring and all that sort of stuff. So up in here is all the wiring. It's just all plugs. I've just disconnected all them. I've undone the earths. They went through a hole in this plate. This was a bit rusted, this plate, so I've cleaned it all up, and I've given it a coat of Rustmaster, which is a rust converter, and it's got like a varnish in it to seal it as well. It's nice. It's boarded up all really nice. There's the little terminal block. I've loosened all that off as well so I could get underneath it and clean it all up. But as you can see, the floor and the back, here's the wiring diagram for it. I'm going to take a photo of that. Hopefully that took a photo. Here's the back. A bit hard to read the nameplate, but I'm going to clean all the back up like I cleaned the front up. Funny thing that happened, I didn't know if there was gas in it or anything like that, so I mucked about a bit and I looked through the holes here and I found the brand name and the who made it, And then I got onto them, this Kirby, sorry, that you can see through there. And they told me it was 134A, so I painted it on the top so I knew what gas went in it. It's just an automotive gas. It tells you how many kilos on a bit of a escutcheon plate here that I can't really read too well. But cut a long story short, once I cleaned the bottom out of this tray, lo and behold, as I cleaned all the dirt and the muck out, there's a sticker right there saying 134A. Ha ha ha. Look at that. What else I've done, you can see all the floor is been coated in rust master because there was some rust there. I've wire brushed all that up and give it a good clean and rust mastered it. You can see I've taken the fan off as well. This has all been coated with rust master as well, just to give it a birthday and make it look nice. But while I was going, I stripped the fan out. I stripped this motor down. It's probably still wet. Yeah, it is a bit wet. I don't want to handle it too much. But I pulled it apart and greased the bushes in it so it spins nice now, and it should give another couple more years of nice service. I've dunked all the heads of the bolts as well, the little cap screws. I cleaned this fan with what do you call it, like hand cleaner with grit in it. It was all oxidised and sort of rough a bit, so anyway it's not a lot nicer now, so you can a little bit shiny, which is good. So I'll put this motor fan back together. It goes in there, and then there's a grill that goes over as well, which is outside drying. I've got rust master on that. So what I'm going to do next is lift this whole refrigerative cooler off here. I've got it unbolted. I'll take it off and set it aside, and the plan is take the tank outside, give it a good degrease, scrub all this muck here off it, get rid of all that, and then I'll pressure wash it, see how it cleans up, and then I'll decide whether I'm going to paint it or not. That's that. I got some help from my brother-in-law this afternoon. We lifted the refrigerative dryer off the tank. So there's the tank ready to go. Tomorrow when the sun comes up, I will pick this up with the skiddy. It's hooked down to a pallet, and I'll take it outside and give it a clean, see what it looks like. So it's been a big day today of cleaning. So I have water blasted every little bit, scrubbed with degreaser and oven cleaner and solvent and all sorts of things, and I've left the tank out in the sun most of today, and then this afternoon I buffed all the rust off all the way around, and I'm getting ready shortly to give it a hit with rust master and put it away for the night. Before I do though, you can see down here the drain at some stage has been bent up. So what I'm going to do is pour a bit of heat into that and bend, that's probably better, bend that drain flat. There we go, I've bent it down quite a fair way. I want the water to actually sit in it, so this whole thing will be sitting on casters later, so water should pool in that little fitting there, and hopefully I'll put some sort of auto drain on it to dump it outside. This will be the end pointing outside the shed, run a pipe outside. There's a pretty good coat of Kill Rust hammered metal finish. Closest colour I could buy, just bought in town. Here's the electrical box for it, which I've taken off the compressor. You can see someone's dented it, so what I'll be doing is taking these 4 screws out, and I'll take this whole plate, lift the whole lot out, and then I'll do some panel beating on that and see if I need to paint this as well. It looks not too bad to paint, but that there just might need a touch up, make it look good. There's not a real lot in here, so there's a grommet on the bottom. Your 3 phases come in here, into this little terminal strip. There's logic transformer, I think it's 24 volts, yep. 24 volt logic, and then all that happens is there's like a phase switch. In case you wire your phases up back to front, it won't let the compressor run backwards. So this little phase switch here holds it out until you switch these over the right way to get the rotation right. Same thing, some more terminals, a couple of fuses. There's one for the fan on the oh sorry, this is only for the compressor. This hasn't got nothing to do with the dryer. This one here, this fuse looks after the fan on the aftercooler, and then there's a series of fuses that do all of the other things. Down here's the motor contactor, and the motor overload just set just over 10 amps, you can see there. And this one's made by Siemens. And what one of the problem was is if you watch this right beside the, I'll try and hold the camera still. If you see right beside here's a little green thingo, if I trip it, think it pops out. If you go to reset it, it doesn't always reset. See it come back up again? If you really push on it, it stays reset. Now, when I first tried to play with this, the controller was showing a motor overload alarm, and it was in the trip state, but the little yellow, the little green thing wasn't out. This was rotated to be in the auto reset mode, like that, but as soon as it tripped, that wasn't actually made, and it still isn't now, because if you listen carefully, if I push, you hear it then, it actually made then. So now it's actually reset. So it's probably on its way out, this, but I mean, as soon as I did that, everything came to life and the compressor was good to go. I did run it without the belts on because the compressor I didn't know the condition of, but we sent this back this way to manual. Probably need a screwdriver. There we go. And trip it again. Trying to focus. There it is. Green one pops up. And green one stays down. So obviously whatever you got this set at is your current setting that the motor will trip at. This obviously feeds back to the controller, and the controller gives an alarm to say that that tripped. That's all that's in here. So I have removed the backboard out of the compressor box, and here's the little pressure transducer I took out as well. It is supply 928 volts. It outputs 4 to 20 milliamps. Pin 1, pin 2, part number maybe, and it is a little Danfoss one. That's probably part number there, I'd say. 02, what's it say? 016 bar, what it says? Yeah, 016 bar. And there you go, so it is just screwed into a socket. That's probably parallel BSP, BSPP, into a socket with a little adapter to a crimp, a little flexible nylon tube with an olive, and that goes off then to the point on the compressor on the discharge. So via this pressure transducer, whatever you dial the controller up to, this is the one giving the feedback to the controller what the actual pressure is. I'm back in the shed tonight. Here's the painted tank. Got my wife to help me pick up the refrigerator dryer, put it back on. As you can see, I've refitted the fan. Like I said earlier, I greased all the bushes in that and rust treated that mesh thing there and painted it. And I've also cleaned up, dressed out the back cowling off the motor, was all dented. Plus this box here, which is the enclosure that holds all the electrical contactors and stuff for the compressor. and there's the compressor stand, so that's all been degreased, and it was dented and bent as well, so I've dressed all that back to shape and hit that with the rust converter as well. So I'm just going to lift all that back onto the tank, and then still hanging from the gantry here is the compressor. You know, to see. So a bit more of a walk around. As you can see, I don't have all the panels on. Something I did do that I didn't show in the earlier videos is I made this little stub here. So this is just a bolt. Socket out a cap screw. I cut the end off with a hacksaw and then just bolted a nut up against it, just so I could put my battery drill on it and actually spin the compressor slowly. So before I even started this, I poured a tiny bit of oil into the screws and actually ran this with the battery drill, just spinning that over to get things circulating, things pushing through and making sure nothing was nasty. Here's the oil cooler and after cooler fan. I stripped this down, cleaned it all up and lubricated it as well. It's got nice little ball bearings in it. We just take these 3 screws out, the fan comes off. Underneath there's a spring loaded, there's a circlip with a washer with the spring, and then the bearings and the rotor, keeping the rotor pushed back one way. So this may be able to float slightly, well, one way, but anyway, that's it. Turn that way and you can see this rating. There you go. So it's still Christmas holidays. I'm just waiting for the refrigeration guy, the local guy, to go back to work and come and re-gas the dryer. It's got gas in it, but it is a bit low. It does take a while to cool down. Plus I've had gauges on it as well, and it does say the gas pressure is low. The compressor, like I said, is all back together. I have run it. It works very well. There's no leaks. Filling it with oil. There is a YouTube video from ELGI on YouTube showing how to fill the oil. You just got to be a bit careful how you do it. Obviously you take the bung off the tank there and you pour your oil in until the oil comes up the sight glasses, up into this one. Then it says to run the compressor for 10 minutes and then stop it and let it sit for 5 minutes and check the oil level. Well, I didn't even run it that long. As I ran it, the oil level dropped out of this glass and started to drop in that glass as well, and you could see it had foamed it up a bit as well. I stopped the compressor, let it sit, and you can see the level came up about halfway up this glass here, so I took the bung back out and filled it up, started it again. It done the same thing, so basically all it was doing was shifting the oil. See, I've got direction arrows now on these 2 ports of which way the oil goes. Oil comes out of here, down into the oil cooler, passes through the oil cooler, back up the other hose and back into the compressor. The thermal valve, like I said, regulates the flow depending on the temperature. As far as oil goes, I'll make a very long story as short as I can. So I've dealt with oil for about 3 years. That's all I did at work was oil cleanliness and micro-contamination of oil, and even how dirty it is when you get it brand new from the manufacturer. Along the line I learned a bit about the oil industry and how they supply oils. So of course ELGI have their own oil. Of course they're a compressor manufacturer, they're not an oil company, so someone's making it for them. Generally what happens, and this happens with just about all your aftermarket, well, not all your funny brand oils like, I don't know, Toyota oil or John Deere oil or whoever you're talking about, it's just packaged by somebody. So I think there's only about 3 or 4 oil manufacturers in the world that make crude oil stocks, the base esters. Depending on what you want in your own oil, you get them to batch what you want. So there's only a handful of oil companies in the world that make the additives. So for instance, you might get this ELGI oil, which is potentially base stock oil from Joe Blow, and an engineer at ELGI Oil say, right, we want this much anti-foaming agent, and we want this much anti-corrosive, and we want this much whatever, dispersants and all the rest of it, and then they call it the best oil in the world because it was their little mix of additives. And basically, it's the same as everyone else, except just a different brew, different recipe, as you may. So I went down the long path of finding out actually who made the ELGI oil, and then just rang Mobil or Castrol, BP, same thing, Castrol BP, and said, what's your equivalent of the ELGI compressor oil, which they had a listing of under a Valvoline brand, which actually had ELGI compressor, turbo compressor, screw compressor labelling on that Valvoline oil. They looked at the recipe, and this is the exact equivalent in the Mobil series, so RARS 426. Now, I could talk to forever about it, what it actually is, but I won't worry about it. So that's an equivalent anyway. Most of your oil companies, you can ring and say, what is such and such oil, and they will tell you exactly what it is and what their equivalent is. It'll be very, very, very close, if not identical, or in some instances actually made by the company that you bought it from. So there's the e-stop error code. If I let the e-stop go, clear the error, it's ready to go. If I press start, a little symbol will come up there. There it is. So it's saying it's ready to go. It's on standby. So if I bleed a bit of air out of the system, you should see this pressure start to drop. Once it gets down below the set point, it'll call for a start. The compressor will start up. It'll start spinning, but it won't load till it's happy everything's good, and then it'll load, and then it'll pump up. So I'll crack the air line now and start bleeding a bit of air off.